Good morning and welcome to the third day of Google Cloud Next. I'm impressed you all made it up here into the logistics of this conference room. It speaks to your supply chain or logistics capabilities. 2023 has been the year of data and AI, right? A very exciting year for my team, our field. And I think there's no better place than in downtown San Francisco at the Google conference to meet with people and exchange ideas. I'm almost losing my voice just from like 48 hours of conversations, and has been super exciting. So I'm excited to stand here today to announce our Data and AI Cloud for supply chain. Yesterday, my team and I got to announce the Data and AI Cloud for marketing. So we're excited to bring these to you and our customers, our partners, and work with you on them. My name is Thelosen. I'm the head of product for Data and AI Cloud here at Google. I'll be joined on stage by John, our solution lead, who will walk us through the Spotlight solutions that we have in store for you. And then Neil will come on stage. He's the CEO and founder of Geotab, a really exciting customer of ours who has done incredible things in the supply chain space now for years, really making our supply chains more sustainable, which is one of the reasons I'm so excited to be here. Data and AI can be used anywhere to reduce cost, increase efficiencies, contribute to the bottom line, right? Your profit margin, your revenue. But in the supply chain, it does all that, and it helps our planet. We reduce carbon emissions. We reduce waste, things that would be otherwise thrown out. And that makes it a very exciting thing to announce here today. We will go through really quick on the learnings we had over the last couple of years. Then we'll go into the solutions we're queuing up for you, the learnings we had, and how we can bring that back to prospects and customers. So the global supply chain has been humming in the background for years without much attention from mainstream. But then, a canal gets stuck, a ship gets stuck in a canal, and we all know about it. There's flooding, there are hurricanes, natural disasters that cause disruptions, and the cascading effects of that are tremendous, and we feel it. We just talked briefly about the COVID crisis, right? And all of a sudden toilet paper is out of stock, and people pay attention to that, right? It's very real. I had the fortune to work, to lead our consulting arm here at Google for data and AI. And with that, we got to work with customers firsthand to figure out how can we get COVID vaccines to people and the ingredients for the vaccines to the right plant, to the right location. So these can be built quickly, can be manufactured quickly, and get out there. But it wasn't just COVID vaccines, right? There was also local restaurants. We have a couple here today. Restaurants that had to change to local restrictions. And so they had to change their ordering process, what they needed in the stores and when. And doing it correctly and being able to forecast accurately made a huge difference. Some of these restaurants, compared to their peers, were able to gain a tremendous amount of revenue share in that time, because they were prepared. They had planned for it. We worked with, I see some familiar faces here. We worked with one of the largest grocery stores and were able to accurately forecast where fresh produce needs to be when. So this is like, these are products that are farmed, that are brought across oceans to us, and now they're in the store, but they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and millions of dollars worth of produce is thrown out because it's not needed. It was inaccurately forecast. And so the savings to the company and the benefits to our environment are tremendous if we can use AI for that. Of course, now in the last couple of years, I've not heard this many tech CEOs talk about like mining operations and all these things that previously we didn't really talk about. Like that level of transparency, that level of understanding of what all flows into our supply chain has really changed. Now, this wouldn't be a talk about data if I didn't bring in some data points here. In 2021, the average company in the developed world lost $184 million on supply chain issues. So things were not in the right place at the right time. And I would love to say that 2021 was a particularly bad year, but I don't think that it will change. I think there will be more disruptions in the future. We are interconnected. We are hyper efficient, right? We don't keep large amounts of inventory on hand. We want to have a streamlined supply chain. And so we need to be ready for these disruptions. And the only way we can do that is by technology that is able to take into account last-minute changes, that is able to change predictions and get them to the people that need them right then. Now 83% of participants in the supply chain immediately pointing fingers, right? Everybody is pointing to their vendor, and that vendor is pointing to the next vendor and whatnot. So everybody wants a better experience in the supply chain. That is like, everybody can agree on that. And then the CEOs of these companies, 48% are now saying that sustainability is one of the top priorities, which is up substantially from previous years. Now, another topic that I hear a lot talking with customers is around safe data sharing. You guys probably have been already at some of the sessions. We have really doubled down on data sharing, Analytics Hub, Data Clean Room. Right now, we have 350 petabyte per week that is being shared. And supply chain is a huge component of that. Like people in the supply chain being able to share with their partners in a secure way where they can keep control of the data, they can keep control of who has access to it, but they can share it to the people that need it and are supposed to have access to it. That is up 40% from last year. So anything that is up 40% from last year, I'm paying very close attention to. Now the next big thing, this is no shocking slide. The next big thing is AI. Now we put already AI, just I would say traditional AI, traditional AI in almost everything we do, right? Forecasting, anomaly detection, being able to see what is happening, why it's happening, alerting people about it. The thing that gets me very excited about large language models in the supply chain is accessibility. So previously, data has been only accessible to people that are in front of a computer, that are looking at spreadsheets, at dashboards, and they're used to reading them and understanding what that means. With large language models, we can now bring that insight to the more like average person participating in the supply chain. So now we can bring insights, we can bring predictions, we can have conversations through LLMs with those people to give recommendations on what we should be doing in the supply chain. So that's on the accessibility side, which I'm super excited about. The other side that is very exciting in the supply chain is that a lot of the supply chain still operates with sticky notes. Like I had a large multi-billion-dollar company my team and I got to work with, where the vast majority of information was still on sticky notes. So what we did is you snapped a picture, we ran it through Document AI, understood what was on the sticky note, and then you can process it through a large language model to actually make it accessible for your ecosystem of analytics. And that opens up so much more information that you previously were not able to get. So the combination of accessibility and then also adding unstructured data, that's called sticky notes, unstructured data, into this information chain, I think is incredibly valuable. And with that, I'm very excited to announce Data and AI Cloud for supply chain. We're bringing together our key products. Right? We have Looker, we have BigQuery, we have Vertex AI, and a variety of other products with accelerators. So these learnings that we had from the field, these templates, we are making them accessible, easily accessible. The data sources, the data enrichments through Analytics Hub, through providers like Geotab, right? Enriching your own data with other data. And then our partnerships. We'll talk about that at the end, like our extensive partnership ecosystem. And solutions, Spotlight solutions that are easy to deploy. So this is not, like we want to make it very easy for you to get from time to value. There has been a lot of thinking going into it. We know what the challenges are that you're facing. And so we put a couple here together, a couple Spotlight solutions that John will talk about in a minute. I already talked about data sharing. Right? We're going to talk about forecasting, demand sensing. We're going to talk about sustainable impact of sourcing. And with that, I'm handing it over to John, who's going to walk us through it in depth. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Lucas. And thanks all, as Lucas said, for your time and attention this morning on a 9 a.m. Thursday slot. Okay, so I'm here to talk about a few solutions that we want to spotlight as part of the Data and AI Cloud announcement for supply chain. There's quite a lot to cover, so I'm going to do a bit of a rapid fire through these solutions. Obviously, we'll be sharing a lot more detail on the website. We can talk afterwards in the Q&A, et cetera, as well. All of the solutions I'm going to spotlight are either part of or integrate with something we call the Cortex Framework. And so it makes sense to start there with what is the Cortex Framework and why have we built it? And in a word, it's about acceleration. It's about accelerating and making it easier for you to take your data journey where you get your data onto the cloud and are able to make use of that data in a business context. More specifically, it means that we've worked at a data source level at the bottom of the slide here with a number of very common data sources in the supply chain space. In the ERP space, SAP, of course. We've worked with Salesforce. We've worked with other partners, as you can see on the slide here. And we've also worked with data integration partners and with our own tooling to make it easy to get that data onto BigQuery in a Cortex Framework compatible way. So this means a bit of data cleansing. It means CDC processing of that data. And we provide that tooling and those processing scripts as part of our data foundation within the Cortex Framework. You can see that here in the middle of the slide. On top of that, we also provide a lot of data models. And these data models contextualize the business data to make it much easier for you to make use of it. But we go a step further than that. So on top of that, what we've done is over the last 2 or so years of the framework being available, we have iterated on it to the point of getting to a level of functional maturity where we've grouped accelerators into business areas. And what you're seeing on the slide here is what we've got in the supply chain space. So some of this is part of that framework, and I'm going to take you through some of what we're announcing new today. But these are all sets of dashboards and accelerators that are all available as part of the framework. And then we've also worked with solution partners. So I mentioned we worked with data integration partners, but we've also worked with solution partners with commercial solutions that specialize in some of these same supply chain areas to have them integrate with our data foundation and with the Cortex Framework. And crucially, because what this represents is essentially an enterprise data foundation, it's completely open. And by open, I mean it's open source. So this is all available today on GitHub under the Apache 2 license. So that's the framework. Let's jump into a few of those solutions that I talked about spotlighting. First off, demand sensing. So we've heard from customers that, like Lucas said, traditional demand forecasting solutions have been running into their limitations more and more over the last few years. Lucas talked about the COVID example, but more recently, of course, we've had some severe inflationary times and other supply chain shocks that have meant there's a lot of volatility in the supply chain that traditional forecasting solutions can't meet based on historical sales trend data, et cetera. But that accurate forecast is, of course, critical to making sure you avoid things like stockouts, overstock situations, you avoid creating negative customer sentiment, and naturally, as a result of that, that you look to maximize profitability and reduce cost. And so demand sensing is a solution accelerator built with the Cortex Framework that looks to help with this by merging multiple data sources and data signals that give a more holistic representation of real-world demand so that you get a more accurate demand forecast that responds better to the real world as it is now and shocks that might come. And we do that by blending that historical sales data through an SAP ERP system, through your demand plan with an IBP system or whatever demand planning tool you use, and additional data that helps represent that real world. So some of the data sets that we've included with the solution accelerator itself are weather, Google Trends, as you can see here. And what you can do as a result is you can actually start to react to upcoming situations. And that's where this becomes demand sensing, not just forecasting. It's sensing potential issues in your supply chain. And part of the solution accelerator is also alerting functionality to let you know proactively that there's an issue or that there's some kind of out of bounds demand signal that's going to impact your demand forecast, to let you know it's time to go update your forecast and react better to the real world as it is. So that's demand sensing. What we've also done, as I said, is we've worked with partner solutions providers like Pluto 7 C3 AI. And what I'm delighted to announce today here on stage is the latest integration we have with Deloitte's Converge Consumer. So this is a solution, it's actually a whole umbrella suite of solutions from Deloitte. We've decided to focus on two for the initial integration we're announcing: demand forecasting and price optimization. And we've done that because looking at the world as it is today, I mentioned inflationary times, but in general, customers are also a lot more cost sensitive as a result at the moment. Price optimization looked like the logical place to start. It's also a solution that provides very tangible, very immediate benefits when used. If we look at these in just a bit more detail, so demand forecasting, it is what it says on the tin, right? It provides a very accurate demand forecast for your solutions, for your products, excuse me. And what's key about it, though, is that it's also explainable, which means that when you get this forecast, you can actually understand not just the forecast and the impact it has, but how the forecast came to be and what were the signals that drove the forecast to be the way it is. And then on top of that demand forecasting, price optimization is built to support your pricing recommendations. And so what this allows you to do is provide recommendations for your product, your optimal product pricing strategy in a retail setting so that you can maximize either margin, volume, or whatever balance you want to achieve. And it simplifies that whole process and that whole pricing decision process. And we're delighted, as I say, to launch this to market with integration, as you can see, now powered by the Cortex Framework. So we worked with Deloitte over the course of 2023 on this, and these are just the first two pieces of the overall Converge Consumer suite of solutions that we're launching initially. We are continuing to work with Deloitte as part of an expanded partnership that's you'll also hear more about here at Next and at Deloitte's booth, of course, downstairs. So we're excited to see what customers do with this and how they make use of it. And that is Converge Consumer. Next up, sustainable supplier recommendation. So this is a brand new concept example that we're also showing for the first time today. And this is also built using the Cortex Framework. Essentially, what we wanted to achieve with this concept is to illustrate how organizations can embed sustainability into their sourcing and into their core operational day-to-day workflows. To do that, we've combined supplier performance data from traditional back-end ERP systems and from third-party partner providers, as you can see here, to provide a set of dashboards, the intent of which is to assess your suppliers more holistically across traditional performance metrics, but also across broader ESG and sustainability metrics, and in doing so, help you to meet regulatory standards, both current and upcoming. We've also, as part of this, so we've produced the dashboards and accelerators that I talked about being part of the typical Cortex Framework layout on a previous slide. But we've also wanted to build a generative AI interface to help you navigate this and to give you proactive recommendations, so give you an actual answer about your suppliers and what to do for a given supply situation or a given sourcing situation. And what was interesting was as we built this, we found that it actually, while it did this, it also helped navigate those dashboards. So to build all of this and to give even a reasonable level of depth into all of the different sustainability metrics that these suppliers could have, it naturally ended up resulting in quite a lot of dashboards. And so what was interesting was to see the side effect where the Gen AI interface actually helps you navigate through those dashboards and filter right down to not just the right dashboard, but with the right set of filters for the context of your question. And of course, we couldn't go through an overview of all of these solutions without giving at least one demo. In the interest of time here, and also because it's quite scary, I've pre-recorded this, but I'm happy to go through afterwards in more detail with anyone who's interested as well. The demo that I want to show you here now on sustainable supplier recommendation. Just before I click play, you may recognize the user interface. This is very similar to what you'll have seen over this week with Duet and also with Bard. On the bottom right here and on the right-hand pane in general, we have our conversational interface. This is where you ask your questions and you get the answers. This is also where you'll see the dashboards get loaded that are contextual to the question you've asked. And on the left, you see the conversation history. So you can retain context. You can jump back through different conversations and questions you've asked. The demo I've prepared is based on a sample CPG company. And this is a chocolate manufacturer. And they're interested in this scenario in how they can maintain and check supplies for all of their ongoing inventory to make sure they can continue making chocolate. Pretty straightforward. So what's the first thing you'd want to do? Well, you're going to want to check what raw materials do I need to reorder. In other words, where are they nearing the need to reorder? So reorder point less than 30 days, and you can see cacao beans here is the one that needs most recent reorder. And you can see some of the dashboards that are brought up to support that context, days of supply, top materials. You can also see how you could jump off into more detailed dashboards if you want. But for now, we're going to zero in on, okay, well, let's look at lead time. Very traditional metric. And if we look at lead time based on the top suppliers for cacao beans, we find national supply is the lowest lead time. It also means, as a result, you can see that it has the highest replenishment time because you've got more time to play with to reorder because they're the fastest and the lowest lead time. Okay, so that's lead time. Spend is another traditional key metric. So what are the top 3 suppliers based on total spend and average purchase price? And so you can see here, again, national supply, I mean, they're midway in terms of how much we spend on them, but they're significantly lower in terms of purchase price. And so now they're looking like a supplier that we would really like to do more business with and save costs. But what about the sustainability impact? So let's ask, which of my suppliers have the highest emissions for transportation? And when we do this, we find our snag. National supply may be the cheapest and the fastest, but they're also the ones with the highest emissions. And this is significantly higher than the highest emissions for the alternative suppliers here. You can also see again how you can jump into the relevant dashboards to get more details on transportation routes, on the sustainable sourcing. But what we want to do is understand, well, why are their emissions so much higher? Because, I mean, they're cheaper, they're faster. Is there a way we can still work with them? So the answer is pretty straightforward. The emissions are high because the transportation mode is air. And air is, of course, very significantly more carbon intensive as a transportation method than road, shipping, et cetera. And when we ask that, we again get a series of dashboards that give us more context and more detail on their sustainability impact. Everything from ESG scores to transportation mode to their emissions trend. You can see the order detail breakdown if you want to get really granular with it. And you can also see things like sentiment score and their news feed. And you'll notice in the news feed, you may not if you're at the back of the room, that there's a lot of articles here on deforestation impact as far as national supply are concerned. So that's an additional source of concern. What is the deforestation history of national supply? And this is super interesting because for those of you who aren't aware, there are prospective legislation underway right now in the EU that will force suppliers to ensure no deforestation impact from the raw materials behind their supplies. That's for certain types of goods, and that includes chocolate and cacao beans. And you can see here how the relevant dashboards we can bring up actually let you zoom right in, not just to the country, but to the farm or plantation where those are actually produced, and then get the deforestation impact right down to a farm level for each of the supporting farms for that supplier. And so as a result, you get enough detail to be able to understand, can I work with this supplier? Can we work on a way to get their emissions impact down? Are there deforestation history going to result in any kind of regulatory issues with upcoming legislation? Maybe if we can get them to shift to road or shipping, it's going to mean their lead time won't be so great anymore. But conversely, those are usually cheaper forms of transportation, so their average price might come down even further, and you can still work with that supplier. So that's sustainable supplier recommendation. This is the concept, but we are working not just on having built this, but on incorporating sustainable sourcing into the Cortex framework as part of our GitHub releases. So we'd love your feedback and to understand where you see the most prioritization there, or what are the key features of that you'd really want to see more of. All of this is work in progress for us right now. And then, last but not least, I wanted to briefly talk about another solution that we've built that is an integration of an existing in preview AI service from Google called Shelf Checking AI. This was announced earlier this year with the Cortex framework. And this is a solution squarely in the retail space for supply chain. The idea is that, well, first of all, with Shelf Checking AI, imagine you're a retail store operator and you want to optimize your shelf storage for customers. So you want to make sure that when a customer comes in, they see nice full shelves, but you also want to track which shelves are getting empty to make sure that you're ordering on time and that you're minimizing, again, the same old factors, stock out and overstocking. And so Shelf Checking AI was part of a suite of AI tools released earlier this year by Google that are aimed at retail. Shelf Checking AI is a way of visually matching what's on the shelf with the product ID and product attributes so that you can then tie it to your back-end systems and ensure that you've stocked your shelves correctly. But what if you could integrate this with the data foundation and the Cortex framework as a whole? And you could combine your SAP product data, your historical sales data, your point of sale data, and Shelf Checking AI. You could have an end-to-end solution. And that could give you a 360-degree view that would help you automate and build on the downstream impact of what you're seeing on those shelves. Not just what you're seeing on the shelves, but what you're getting from that point of sale data as well. So you could prioritize restocking of your shelves based on order frequency. You could adjust based on margin of your products to make sure that you're getting the optimal sales of the right products at the right margin. You could analyze the health of your shelves overall, your consumption patterns. You can build off those consumption patterns to then influence your other systems and potentially even, though this isn't part of the solution, again, your forecasting. And so you can build on the combination of all of that data to better identify that on-hand stock. You can look at your warehouse stock, at the data in your back-end SAP systems, so that you can, again, optimize what you're putting on your shelves, when you're putting it there, optimize for a margin, and overall end up with increased store associate productivity, increased sales, lower stock out, and ultimately, better profitability. And that's the last of the solutions I wanted to take you through. Thanks for the time. I'll pass back now to Lucas and Neil to hear more about Geotab.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. So it's great to see the theory then put into reality, right? I love seeing those demos. That's awesome. Okay, now let's talk about Geotab. You guys are, this is Neil, so he was on the site earlier. Thank you for joining me here today. Great customer of Google Cloud. And why don't we start off with what is Geotab?
Great, awesome, thank you. So hi everybody, Neil Cawse. Thanks for having me here today. Congratulations, Lucas, on the announcement. I think this is a really interesting, it's interesting for all our customers being in the supply chain industry. So I'm going to run you through a little bit about Geotab, what we're about. A big Google customer. We've been partners with Google for a very long time. So Geotab is a company. We're about 2,000 employees. We started in around 2000. We are the largest telematics company in the world. We have nearly 4 million vehicles that we connect. So, what is vehicle telematics? Very important when it comes to supply chain. We're really kind of the engine at the bottom that collects the data about the vehicle, about how the vehicle's being used, information off the engine bus, everything about windscreen wipers are on, it's been involved in an accident, faults in the vehicle for maintenance, safety information. And we connect that to the cloud, and then we bring that into analytics to allow customers to run better fleets and manage their supply chain, monitor, understand what's happening. Kind of have a philosophy at Geotab, you cannot manage what you don't measure. So, some of our customers that are interesting, the whole of New York City, 39,000 vehicles connected. The city runs on that, so that's all the emergency vehicles, it's all the buses, anything involved in public service. The whole state of California is sole source Geotab from a telematics perspective, so Caltrans, all the agencies, US federal government, many of the agencies in the US federal government are all Geotab. And so, it's interesting just to see, again, that philosophy of you can't manage what you don't measure. We're providing the source data that drives a lot of, the platforms, that Google needs and announced here today. So that's a little bit about, Geotab. We are, as we mentioned, a platform. I think everybody's a platform these days, but, from a telematics perspective, we're a great platform. I wanted to show you this little dashboard. Sorry, it's not a perfect picture, but it's just an interesting one. This is from our offices in Oakville. Love to have Lucas over at some point. But just interesting to see all of that data is sourced and driven out of Google BigQuery. Everything is live. All of the data you see there is continuously live. That's our number of connected vehicles. And so every day as you're walking around, you watch these numbers and metrics change. So really data-driven culture at Geotab. So that's a little bit about Geotab.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much. That's impressive.
Thank you.
So what are some of the internal use cases you guys have where you use our products? Like, which ones are you excited about, and how do they impact your own operation? So, given that we're an engineering company and, we have very much a data science, data-driven culture, we're a massive user, of Google resources. And we worked with the Google team very much from the earliest days on leveraging Google BigQuery. In fact, the BigQuery team has been amazing at, listening to Geotab. In the early days, there wasn't a big GIS focus, for example, on Google BigQuery, and, they've added all the GIS components, which gives you the ability to have, data that is like, about geography. So where are you, by state, by area, and that makes the data even more powerful. So internally at Geotab, I think we have, 18 petabytes of data. What's kind of cool is that every system in our organization pushes their data into BigQuery. We leverage a lot of the BigQuery services like BQML, so being able to attach machine learning very, very easily to this very large amount of data, and to be able to do things like anomaly detection, to be able to analyze the behavior of that data, and then make it instantly available in those dashboards. I mean, we have more than 100 data scientists, and what's super cool to me as a bit of an engineering nerd is, the fact that you can go into, BigQuery, and you can sit and you can write a query and you can say, I want to see, all the charges that are currently charging in Spain, or, I want to go, we just did a new release 3 weeks ago. Did the number of customer calls increase? And to me, being able to have those things instantly accessible, by anybody, democratizing the access to data in the organization, allowing anybody in any department to turn around and go, I would like to know X, and it's just instantly accessible within a couple of minutes to me, I think is super exciting. So yeah, we spend a lot of money with Google, but it's absolutely, well worth it in terms of the scale that, that we need to operate at and the services we need to offer our customers. Yeah, thank you. I think that's super valid, like the ability to not have to move your data anywhere, right? There's no egress, there's no ingress, it's there, and you can access those AI functionalities like BigQuery machine learning, right? Which I think is it's a really good first step for people to take on the AI journey. Right? Your data is in BigQuery, you want to use these, and now Vertex integration is right there. So being able to do it all without ever having to move your data. So it makes your first-party data so much more valuable.
100%. And yeah, products like Vertex AI, we're now starting to leverage, at large scale. As I mentioned, BQML. What's so exciting for us, I mean, we honestly went through this journey in the early days of deciding whether we want to go with Google on the more proprietary software side or go open source. And, we as an engineering company, always like the idea of open source. The best decision we ever made was not to do that and to go, with Google. Because what's so amazing is the building on top of it. Like, what BQ is today and what Vertex is today. You've got these amazing engineers investing in the platform and boosting it up. And so every month you come to the next advancement, which makes your products better because you can now leverage all of that in your company.
Yeah. Now, I know we have a lot of joint customers here. What are some of the things that we do together well that helps them?
Yeah, so there's so many things that we do on the side. I'll choose maybe one example. So Enterprise Fleet Management, which is the largest leasing company in North America, we did an interesting one for them that lines up with the sustainability theme, which I'll mention. And that is that they came to us and they said, we'd like to do a study with our customers. And so what we did is we took all of their travel data. So how are you using your vehicle? Where is the vehicle going? What is the temperature in the area where the vehicle's driving? How long is it staying in a particular location for? And then what we did is we call it EVSA. It's really, in a nutshell, we analyze the behavior of your vehicle, and then we try and recommend to you which of the vehicles are sensible to convert to EVs and which ones you shouldn't, right? Because not every use case, there's just not all the vehicle types out there. So picking the right vehicle for the right job becomes critically important. So what we do is we break it down, and we found roughly 13% of the vehicles are the most optimal. And what's really cool is we even worked out the ROI. So within a 4-year period, switching those trucks to this vehicle or that vehicle from different EV manufacturers, you would be able to get this amazing ROI, save $33 million over that period, and remove something like 197,000 tons of carbon out of the atmosphere. So what's interesting about doing this kind of approach is it's not just the sustainability angle, it's also the cost saving. Like, people think that the two have to be mutually exclusive, and what we found in this research was that it's absolutely not. And that's where we're incentivizing customers, showing them the reason why they had to change. So that's one, really I thought was kind of an interesting example of how it was used. Again, all built on the framework of BigQuery and the data science and Vertex powering the stuff to make these decisions. You need to leverage a lot of that AI.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, and just really short, because I know we can talk about this forever, but what are you excited for next?
Yeah, I mean, you can't not talk about Gen AI, right? I mean, you know that that's going to come up. But I mean, ultimately, the key thing for me is, like, you have to start with collecting all the data, right? And, you can't use Gen AI on something that Gen AI doesn't have access to. So the number one step is to say, I have telematics, or I'm using these other services from the Google supply chain platform. Once I have the data available in BigQuery or in a data source, now the Gen AI capability can help you analyze that data at scale, pick out these interesting insights, make decisions and changes to your organization. And we know that wherever we are at Gen AI today, in a year, 2 years, 3 years' time, we're going to be even further ahead. So I'm just so excited to be able to build in your fleet manager is now going to be built into the mind, the heart and soul of Gen AI. We're going to fine-tune the model so they are your expert fleet manager. Yeah. And now you say, what do I need to know today? And it'll tell you, focus on safety, focus on supply chain reliability, do some sustainability work. And so it's exciting times.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on there. I think if we, there are things everybody will do, but then in order to differentiate yourself, your first-party data, second and third-party data will really be the differentiator, and that's exciting. Yeah. So getting that foundation right. So if you wouldn't mind, thank you so much for coming on stage.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you. Yeah. So we talked about the challenges in the supply chain, right? The opportunities at the same time. And I'm excited to bring it all together in our supply chain offering here, Data and AI Cloud for Supply Chain. We talked about the solutions that John walked us through, these templates, these accelerators that you can use out of the box to get value, the partner network that enriches it and builds on top of it. So with that, I wanted to touch on some of the other partners we have, our Spotlight partners. But there's a vast ecosystem of partners out there. But these really have worked with customers on our stack, with our stack, to have these success stories there. And so this is a slide dear to my heart. So yes, take some pictures of it. Excited to see these logos up here. Now, I have one more action item to you, and then we have a couple minutes for questions. So if you want to take this one, take a screenshot, read the QR code, maybe a screenshot and a QR code. This is our survey, our benchmarking survey. So you can go in there and you can click on the supply chain one, and you can see where you are compared to peers. And we can give you a recommended journey on what you can do next. So it's a very concrete step for you to take. Work with your partner manager, your sales rep, on how you can take those next steps. But this is neutral. Anyone can take it. You don't have to be on Google Cloud Platform.